All right, hi guys. Today we are going to be continuing our lesson from 5.1, and we're going to start out with a new definition, and that is if the terminal side of an angle that is in standard position coincides with one of the axes, the angle is called a quadrantal angle, right? And it's pretty basic once you look at the examples. It's just any angle that ends up on one of the axes, and that kind of makes sense. Quadrantal angle and quadrant and four, you know, and this negative 180 is also 100 positive 80 unless they purposely rotate it negatively. But I think they're just giving other examples. So I don't think that's too hard for you to grab as a concept. It's really just a name for something you already know. And we're going to hop right into the second example here. These ones aren't bad at all. It says, give the angle measure represented by each rotation. So 5.5 rotations clockwise. If we think of a full rotation, right? A full rotation around would be 360 degrees, right? So all we have to do is multiply these by 360 in essence. So we have 5.5 rotations clockwise, but remember clockwise, our angle is going to be negative, so we should multiply by negative 360 degrees. And when we do that, that'll give us negative 1,980 degrees. And that's our answer. These ones are that easy. And so this one is 3.3 rotations counterclockwise, same concept, 3.3 times around, so that'll be 3.3 times positive 360 this time, 360 degrees, because we're going counterclockwise, and counterclockwise is positive. And 3.3 times 360 is going to be 1,188 degrees. And that's all our answer is for that one. So I have some definitions here, and I'm going to explain them in different ways. The first one is just through text. Two angles in center position are called coterminal angles if they have the same terminal side. And I'm actually going to jump to the not so mathy one first. And that's just if you add or subtract 360 degrees from an angle, you get the same angle, right? If you go all the way around, you end up at the same place. That's a coterminal angle. That's all it means. Now here's the super mathy part, but the super mathy part is what we're going to use. So it's actually important to understand if alpha, that little a is alpha, if alpha is the degree measure of an angle, then all angles measuring a plus 360 times k degrees, where k is an integer, are coterminal with a. So first off, a couple things to dissect there. Let's just make it concrete, right? If a is the degree measure of an angle, or if alpha is the degree measure of an angle, let's say alpha is 45 degrees. Let's just make a concrete example, right? Then alpha plus 360 times k is coterminal as long as k is an integer. Well, here's another thing. What is an integer? If we remember, an integer is all your whole numbers that are negative and positive. So, negative 3, negative 2, negative 1, 0, 1, 2, 3, on forever, and this goes on forever backwards, right? So that's an integer. And so where k is an integer, we could select any integer in there, and this is going to be true, right? So let's make it true, right? 45 degrees, if k was 1, 360 times 1 is 360, right? That's going to get us all the way back around. Now, if k was 2, right, k equals 1 there. If k is 2, then what? Then we have 45 degrees plus 360, and then we're putting 2 in for k. What? 45 plus 720, right? Or we're just adding 360 twice. And if we just add 360 2 times, we end up right back where we were, right? And it works for negatives too, right? If we were to put 45 plus 360 times negative 3, that's just going backwards 3 times, right? And ending up at the same spot, which is coterminal. And so that's all that mathy term is saying. And alpha can be anything, right? So if alpha was, let's say alpha was 60 degrees, then you just replace it with 60 degrees and it's still true, right? You go backwards 360 degrees 3 times and you're still going to be coterminal with 60 degrees. So that's all it's saying. It's just generalizing. So example 3, identify all angles that are coterminal with each angle, then find one positive angle and one negative angle that are coterminal with the angle. So 45 degrees, I just did this, right? We know that all coterminal angles are going to be alpha plus 360 times k degrees. Our alpha here is just 45, right? So all coterminal angles are, what are all the coterminal angles going to be? They're going to be 45 degrees plus 360 times k degrees. Important, where k is an integer. That's important, right? K can't just be any number, right? We can't put 1.5 in for k, because then it won't be true. So that's all the angles. That's all the coterminal angles possible right there. 45 degrees plus 360 times k degrees, where k is an integer. That answer is this first part of the question. Now find one positive angle and one negative angle. You can just put anything in for k that will end up with a positive angle and anything with a negative one. So if we do k equals 1, then we're going to have 45 degrees plus 360 degrees times 1, which is essentially we're just adding 360, and that's going to get us 405 degrees. So that's a positive one, right? And then a negative one, let's just pick negative 2, right? If k is negative 2, then we have 45 plus 360 times negative 2, 360 degrees, 45 degrees, right? And now that's essentially just like subtracting 360 twice, and that'll give us negative 675 degrees. And now we just do the same exact thing for 225 degrees. So 225 degrees plus 360 degrees times k, where k is an integer. Remember, what is integer again? Negative 1, 2, 3, and so on, and then positive 1, 2, 3, and so on, right? And 0. So that's every possible angle that answers the first part, right? And now to get a positive and a negative one, we could stick in whatever we want. For the positive, let's just pick k equals 2. That'll get us there, right? K equals 2, that's going to give us 225 degrees plus 360 degrees times 2, and that is going to give us 945 degrees, especially with adding 360 twice, which will get us back to the same spot, or adding 720. And now let's do k equals negative 1 will get us there, right? So if we do 225 degrees plus 360 degrees times negative 1, that will get us, all we're doing is minusing 360 degrees, so we'll get negative 135 degrees. And that'll be it for the second part of lesson 5.1.